Unfortunately, the Delhi police has resorted to a level of brutality which is most unnecessary and I would say most unfortunate, because the youngsters who are protesting, they were by and large peaceful. I agree with you that anyone who argues that what happened in Bangladesh or what happened in Nepal could have happened in India is being paranoid, and also they are saying it perhaps with an axe to grind. That is, they wanted to justify the police brutalities. So I'm sorry to say I cannot take such an argument seriously, because sometimes governments, not only in India, have the habit of appointing an investigation or inquiry team, get the recommendation, and they are just filed away. No consequential action is taken.
That India is a self-correcting democracy. When you look back at this protest and the way the government handled it, and the way it was covered globally, and the way the world sort of perceived and interpreted the crackdown on student protesters, do you think it is in line with that, or do you think it only solidifies the narrative that India is not a safe country for dissenters under the current government?
Well, let me put it this way. Partly, this demonstrated that India is a self-correcting democracy. Because if the government had acted the same way as it acted in regard to the farmers' agitation, what would have happened? Do you know that metro stations in Delhi, 17 or 18 of them were closed? Tell me, how long can you keep the metro stations closed? So that way it is self-correction. But this self-correction could have come much faster.
So thank you so much for taking out the time and joining us this week again. A lot of ground to cover. A lot of things have happened in India and around the world. So let's start with the biggest story from India. The education minister finally resigned over the weekend. The Cockroach Janata Party managed to get their primary demand sort of accepted by the government, and the government had to concede to the Gen Zs finally. I believe you also went to Jantar Mantar during the protest. Tell us your assessment of the CJP, their protest, and the success they got.
Well, let me put it this way. I congratulate the government for, agreeing to the resignation of the education minister. Because let us understand, when the farmers had their agitation, it lasted for a year or so, and 783 of them were killed. Now, in this case, it lasted for 35 days. So the government has acted faster. In other words, the government has learned from the past. So that's a plus point. And another thing is that at some point, the government told the Cockroach Janata Party that whether they would agree to Dharmendra Pradhan getting another assignment. And the youngsters said, nothing doing. So I think, they also should be congratulated for being consistent and persistent, and on the whole, keeping their language very measured. Unlike, that BJP MP Kangana, the honorable MP, who I was reading, said abusive things about, quote, Hindu women, unquote, who had gone to the Jantar Mantar. Now, her words are so abusive that I refuse to repeat them. So, on the whole, I think the government has acted right, though with a delay. But, these are matters of human nature, and we should not expect immediate action on the part of human beings who are in power.
Right. Let's look at some of the other aspects that came along, besides, of course, the main victory of the CJP. One of the disturbing aspects was the brutality of the Delhi police and the visuals that we saw from Bihar as well. Delhi police brutally thrashing students using pellet guns. There is enough and more evidence to suggest that pellet guns were used against student protesters. And just yesterday, you had this visual come from Bihar where a policeman was seen firing an AK-47 against protesters. These visuals are being debated highly around the world, and the picture it paints about India and its police forces. How do you see this case of police brutality, sir?
Well, unfortunately, the Delhi police has resorted to a level of brutality which is most unnecessary and I would say most unfortunate because the youngsters who are protesting, they were by and large peaceful. In fact, the story is that, and Delhi police also confirms it, some criminal elements, Delhi police has given a figure of 2,800 or more, had got into the place and they were sort of, trying to create trouble. Then, strangely enough, some persons on behalf of the Delhi police have uh, discredited the students for letting these people in. But the students were not controlling who is coming in and who is going out. So the Delhi police that was doing it. So I don't think the protesters can be sort of charged with asking criminal elements to come in. And another thing in this regard is that I can share the photo with you later. There was a photo of a truck filled with lots of stones parked near the site. And my question is, if it was put there by the youngsters, the protesters, Delhi police should have removed it. If it was put there by criminal elements, then again, Delhi police should have removed it. So the question is, why is it that Delhi police did not remove the truck immediately? In fact, many people send messages to the Delhi police giving photographs and all that, but still the truck was there for quite some time. And we also should factor in that a new police commissioner was appointed, well, what shall I say, without giving any notice to the incumbent. And then, Delhi police also practically kidnapped the fasting Wangchuk, you know what I mean? So Delhi police could have acted with more, what shall I say, in a more measured way, in a more professional way. So let us hope that Delhi police will learn from this. And you mentioned about pellet guns. In fact, 5 names have come to my notice. One is Sheikh Irshad Mansouri, 25 years, Nutan Topo, lady, 32, Prashant Singh, 28, Sahil Loshab, 19. Well, I mean, 4 names came to me, or maybe there is one more name. But the point is, these names are there, and the media, our investigative media, should go to them and talk to them. And also, some MPs, including John Britas, were prevented from, going to a hospital and meeting some of the injured ones. That is not on. An MP has every right to visit somebody who is injured. So Delhi police should learn some lessons and act better. Let's hope so that they will do that.
So, two more aspects before I move on to the other subjects. One is the fact that this was India's first Instagram revolution and the first big Gen Z protest that we saw on the streets. Now, those supporting the government, one of the main arguments that they've been putting forth since the beginning is that, Gen Z coming onto Indian streets and they immediately point to our neighborhood, saying that look what happened in Nepal and look what happened in Bangladesh. And there was this fear instead that this Gen Z is up to something, some nefarious activities are on. Do you believe that this is also a moment for the government to step back and start looking at dissenters, especially Gen Z, on merit rather than being paranoid about the fact that this could lead to a bigger change and revolution and coup in line with what we saw in our neighborhood.
I agree with you that anyone who argues that what happened in Bangladesh or what happened in Nepal could have happened in India is being paranoid, and also they are saying it perhaps with an axe to grind. That is, they wanted to justify the police brutalities. So I'm sorry to say I cannot take such an argument seriously. And only thing is that this is not the end of the story. We are told that elections are going to be held for student bodies in Delhi University and maybe elsewhere. And some of the youngsters who took part in the demonstrations at Jantar Mandir expect to cash in on that. Incidentally, did you notice that the universities came out with an advisory to their faculty and students: don't go anywhere near Jantar Mandir for the sake of your safety, as though the faculty and students should be told about their safety by the university. In fact, I believe, I hold that the university authorities should not have come out with such an advisory, because let's look at it logically. If 10 people saw that advisory, well, one or two of them were never going to go in any case. But as regards the 8 others, the tendency will be okay. I am told not to go, so let me go and find out. You know what I mean? So even psychologically, it did not make any sense. Obviously, the university authorities wanted to curry favor with the government. Now, that's not the job of the university.
Right. And the final aspect in this is the education reform itself. The Prime Minister has announced a task force led by Nandan Nilekani, and they've been asked to come up with a comprehensive plan that looks at overhauling the education system and addressing the core demand of the students, which is fixing the broken education system of our country, because it's pretty much evident that our education system is not even a quarter of what some of the biggest countries in the world have, and there is a genuine crisis on that front. What are your expectations from this task force, and do you believe that something meaningful could come out in terms of reforms for our education system?
Well, I personally welcome the appointment of Nilekani and others, and a task force is necessary. But let me ask a question. There was a Radhakrishnan report that was in 2024. Now, what has happened? Because sometimes governments, not only in India, have the habit of appointing an investigation or inquiry team, get the recommendations, and they are just filed away. No consequential action is taken. So that's point number one. In this case, let's hope there will be consequential action. Point number two is that the Nilekani Commission should examine whether there is real need for NEET, because Tamil Nadu has reservations. So that fundamental question has to be asked and answered. I'm not prejudging what the answer should be. Third thing is that, 180 questions, multiple choice questions, have to be answered by the NEET candidates. And there is shortage of time. I think it's 3 hours. Now, let me put it this way: 180 questions and 180 minutes. So within 1 minute, you have to make a choice. Now, your choice can depend on your knowledge. It can depend on your ability to recall something which you have learned, and also, what I call rote learning. Learned it by heart, so to say. Now, this is not necessary. In fact, don't make our exams so nerve wracking. Instead of 180, let them answer 100 questions. Point number. Next is, I have some reservations about these multi choice questions, because look at it. If there are four choices, then I will get the right. I have 25% chance of getting the right one. You know, so that is not very sensible. And another thing is that there should be some occasion for the students to demonstrate their reasoning ability and also their writing ability. And another thing is that you know uh, in this case, it's very quantitative because the subjects are physics, chemistry, biology, and botany. Very technically speaking, you can score zero in chemistry and she can still be in. Does it make any sense? So I believe the whole system has to be very radically, changed. And let us hope Nilakani Commission will do that. And they should consult with the students and the teachers. It's very important. In fact, they should consult with CAG, CJP, CJP, Cockroach Janata Party. Let not there be any false pride. You know what I mean?
Sir, you've always maintained that India is a self-correcting democracy. You say that India, while there are flaws and the things that need rectification, at the end of it, India is a self-correcting democracy. When you look back at this protest and the way the government handled it, and the way it was covered globally, and the way the world sort of perceived and interpreted the crackdown on student protesters, do you think it is in line with that, or do you think it only solidifies the narrative that India is not a safe country for dissenters under the current government?
Well, let me put it this way. Partly, this demonstrated that India is a self-correcting democracy. Because if the government had acted the same way as it acted in regard to the farmers' agitation, what would have happened? Do you know that metro stations in Delhi, 17 or 18 of them were closed? Tell me, how long can you keep the metro stations closed? So that way it is self-correction. But this self-correction could have come much faster. In fact, one I would have expected from Prime Minister Modi, who has got such a high reputation for doing his own thinking, not being dependent on others, what to do, to tell him what to do. I would have expected faster action.
Let's move on to the world and what is happening in other countries. As we are talking, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has landed in the United States for a high-stakes meeting with Donald Trump. What are your expectations? Do you believe something major could come out of this meeting, or will things go on as usual?
Well, as I have been saying all along, and I said it last time, President Trump has been trying to ride two horses at the same time. One diplomacy, the other military action, and threat of more military action. Now, for the time being, for 13 nights, the Central Command bombed Iran. And what did Iran do? It retaliated by bombing mainly at Kuwait and Bahrain and also Jordan. And Iran has inflicted heavy losses on American military bases and equipment and all that. So that is one part of the story. Now, Trump says that Iran is very keen to talk. Well, that is Trump's way of saying that he is very keen to talk. And whereas Iran is, of course, prepared to talk, being the weaker party, Iran should be prepared. At the same time, Iran has stated publicly for what it's worth. If Trump wants a bigger war, Iran is prepared. And it is my reckoning, and this reckoning is supported by military pundits in the United States also, that Iran has the wherewithal to resist America for a couple of weeks or even a couple of months. And with the midterms looming, and with less than 30% of American public supporting Trump, I think Trump has no choice but to talk. But having said that, as I said, Trump is disconnected with the reality. So we cannot be too sure as to what he might do. And Iran might think that Trump has now paused, not because he really wants to talk, but because he's short of ammunition, especially interceptors and all that. And in parallel, he is saying that he is sending more resources. So, this sort of riding two horses is most dangerous. But my reckoning, final reckoning, I could be wrong, is that there will be talks and this matter will be resolved.
So you believe that this meeting between the US president and Israeli prime minister could be about Trump convincing Netanyahu and getting Iran on board to stop this war once and for all? Is that your
I
feeling?
wouldn't use the word convincing. Trump's style is ordering. Because don't forget that Netanyahu's political base in Israel also is, shaky. You see? So Trump might tell him, in fact, publicly has been telling him, I will order him to do it. And Trump is capable of doing that. And also, don't forget, American jury, they are not, repeat, supporting Netanyahu. And some of them are even angry with Trump for having started this war. So, and Trump, I said he can be disconnected with reality, but at the same time, he's shrewd, you know. So it's a strange combination of real estate tycoon who is successful and at the same time a president who is willing and able to disconnect himself from the reality, as he demonstrated when he said China digitally interfered and that is why he lost the 2020 election. Laughable.
Let's come to another concerning development. This is from the Black Sea, and this should be concerning India. The Indian government has advised citizens to carefully assess the security situation before taking up employment in conflict-hit maritime zone, especially in the Black Sea. And this comes after the death of 5 Indians in 2 attacks on commercial ships in the Black Sea region over the past week. And in the latest strike, an Indian lost his life, while 4 others died in a similar attack on the 19th of July. Now, even when Indian sailors were attacked, I believe in the Strait of Hormuz, the Ministry of External Affairs came out with a statement. They summoned diplomats from the other countries, saying that Indian sailors should not come in harm's way. But beyond the point, does these measures are these measures handy in any way, or do you believe the MEA should go out of their way, be more proactive to avoid these deaths and casualties in the first place?
I'm sorry to say, MEA is not looking at it holistically because there cannot be a separate scheme for the protection of Indian sailors. You know what I mean? There should be a scheme for protection of all sailors. That's point number 1. And as I have been saying, when the BRICS foreign minister level meeting was held in Delhi, that was the time when India, as the chair of the BRICS, should have announced a plan, of course, with the concurrence of the rest of the BRICS, for sending a humanitarian mission to Strait of Hormuz, and and India did not do that. And second thing is that if somebody is firing at a ship, it is not after finding out, oh, there are Indian sailors there, so let us fire. No, that is not what is happening. The ship's captain is not obeying the instructions, and therefore the other party, and again, what they are doing is wrong. Because as I have been saying, there's a protocol, you don't fire into the ship or into the engine room. You do so many other things before, firing at the ship. And even if you fire at the ship, should be by the side, not to sort of, cause fatalities. You know what I mean? So we have to be more active, and India should send out instructions to ships where Indians are the captains and where Indians are just sailors, that listen, where there is danger, it is utterly foolish to sail into that zone. Imagine, I mean, a ship trying through the Strait of Hormuz, protected by an American plane flying above it. Doesn't make any sense. So the sailors and the captains have to be sensitized, and India should summon all the sort of companies which are employing Indian sailors and talk to them, and all this to be done not with much publicity, because then there will be other problems. All this should, and I don't think it has been done so far. So MEA should think through and have a holistic plan. And protest, summoning the diplomats, well, that is something to be done. But it doesn't bring us back the lives lost, does it?
Let me ask you a broad question, sir. Does this war that has been going on for months now, does this mark a turning point in our geopolitics? What is your sense?
I put it this way, it does mark a turning point, because what has happened? 28th of February, Israel and the United States attacked Iran. Iran, which is compared to these two countries, militarily so weak, economically so weak under sanctions and all that, and in terms of diplomatic clout, again, very weak. So it has been an asymmetrical war, which at this moment shows that the weaker party might win. Now, President Trump wanted to make America great again, MAGA. And he speaks so much about the unbeatable American military and all that. Now, the world is realizing that President Trump is just boasting. That is his habit. So, there are limits to what America can do militarily. That is being watched by the rest of the world. And it's very important that the Europeans did not jump in, even when they were told by Trump. In fact, he told them, if you don't jump in, then why should I come and to your rescue if you are attacked? But despite all those threats, Europeans did not jump in, because this is an illegitimate, immoral, unwanted, sort of a criminal war. You know what I mean? So that is what it is. And also, this GCC security architecture will change. Having an American base doesn't give you security. So the GCC countries will have to think through. And perhaps India can play a role. Pakistan is already playing a role with its treaty of mutual defense with Saudi Arabia. So that also is opening up. And that world will not, China will not, Russia will not, that America has run short of interceptors in this war. Will China sort of take that into account if and when it decides to take action, military action against Taiwan? Well, that question hangs in the air. And Russia also would have noted, now of course, there is this question what Trump will do about the Ukraine war. Zelensky, as you know, is there. Well, there is some talk that Trump will give more weapons to Zelensky, but actually he's sending the weapons. He's not giving. And another thing is that he might permit Zelensky to make the Patriot missiles in Ukraine, but all that will take time, and American companies will make money. So Trump is making money from this war. Now, it is quite possible, because Putin is, he's losing so much of his oil and other installations. Huge damage is being inflicted on Russia. So it is possible that Putin also is in a mood to end this war, in which case Trump might be able to bring out something for a ceasefire to be followed by negotiations. We should all be grateful to Trump if he does that.
And my final question, so I want to circle back to India. One of the biggest criticisms of the Modi government in the last 12 years at home and overseas as well has been its Hindutva agenda, that everything is being given a communal color, the minorities are being mistreated, And this is something that has now gotten to a point where even international agencies, countries, diaspora are concerned about and are raising their voice against. And we saw a tinge of that in this Gen Z CJP protest in Delhi as well. Do you believe it is time for the Modi government to pause and rethink how it goes about its functioning on the political front? Because now it is starting to have ramifications internationally as well.
Well, to your question, is it time? I would say it is. But it doesn't follow that the government will, because that's a different question. Now, let me make one or two points. I was ambassador in Finland, and I found that India was portrayed there as, full of snake charmers and all that sort of thing. And so I called the textbook writers in Finland. Incidentally, there is no government appointed textbook writers. It is textbooks are written by an association member called non-fiction writers. The government doesn't interfere at all, market, they don't interfere at all. So I called them for cocktails and I told them that, we should do something about it. But just to be diplomatic about it, I said, I'm not satisfied with the way Indian textbooks deal with Finland. Finland is an important country and Indo-Finnish relations are very important and there should be better coverage of Finland. So then they said, what can be done? So I said, maybe you can make a visit to India and talk to your counterparts, that is, those who write the textbooks. They said, fine. And at that time, I'm talking about 85, 86, we were not having so much foreign exchange. And I was sure that my minister will not give me any financial support. But I persuaded them. They sort of took care of their own airfare and their accommodation. But I told NCRT, receive them at the airport, spend time with them, discuss, and also take them round. And then what happened? They invited a delegation from India, and the Finnish people were paying for that. So there was improvement, and there should be improvement. So these things are. So I think we have to ask the fundamental question: should there be so much government control over textbook writing? Because let me tell you, just yesterday I had a word with a teacher teaching social sciences because I'm writing an essay on is Mahatma Gandhi still relevant today? And that is for the India International Center. Now, I asked the teacher, what do you tell the students about Mahatma Gandhi? I asked her, do you sort of give the instance of, Mahatma Gandhi as a boy misspelled kettle when the inspector, probably an Englishman, was present, and how his teacher told him copy from the neighbor, and Mohandas Karamchand refused, and he was chided by the teacher. So I said, this is an great example of honesty. Oh, we don't say such. We have not been telling them. You see. And then I asked the teacher, do you think Gandhi was responsible for the partition? So she said, yes, he was. And then she asked me, don't you think Gandhi was responsible for the execution of Bhagat Singh? Because if Gandhi had put in a word, Lord Irwin would not have done it. Now, on all these counts, she is wrong. Gandhi did try for suspension of the death sentence because he couldn't have asked for commutation because the Privy Council had already ordered it and the Viceroy did not have the powers. Gandhi spoke, he wrote about Bhagat Singh. Second thing is that about partition, Gandhi fought partition to the very end. All this is recorded, but even the teachers don't know. So something has to happen about our, the way we train the teachers. And did I tell you once that I had a civil service candidate who had taken history as a subject, Indian history, and it was the month of August, and I asked him to give me 5 sentences on Quit India movement, and his 5 sentences did not, I repeat, did not make any reference to Mahatma Gandhi. And when I asked him during the feedback time, why didn't you? He said, sir, nobody ever told me that Gandhi had anything to do with it, nor had he read anywhere that Gandhi did anything. So we have serious problems.
All right. On that note, Ambassador KP Fabian, sir, thank you so much for joining us on HW News. Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure.